The road was quiet. Too quiet. It was early morning, and the sun was just coming up. Birds were singing, and the wind moved slowly through the tall trees. A few cars passed by, one after another, but nobody really looked around. Everyone was busy. Everyone had somewhere to go. Then suddenly, a scream broke the silence. Not a loud scream. Not a strong scream. It was a small, broken scream. A little black girl ran out onto the road. She was no more than 8 years old. Her hair was messy. Her feet were bare. One of her shoes was gone. Her dress was dirty, and her hands were shaking. There was blood on her fingers. Not a lot, but enough to notice. She waved her arms and cried out again. "They beat my mom. She's dying." Her voice cracked. Her words came out fast and messy, like she did not even have time to breathe. A car slowed down. The driver looked at her, then looked away. The car drove past. Another car came. The driver rolled the window down just a little. He stared at the girl for 2 seconds. His face showed fear, not care. Then he rolled the window back up and pressed the gas. The girl stood in the middle of the road. Her heart was racing. Her chest hurt. Her throat burned from screaming. She tried again. "Please, help me." But people did not stop. Some thought she was lying. Some thought it was not their problem. Some were just scared. She ran to the side of the road and fell to her knees. Tears rolled down her face. She wiped them with her dirty hands, making her face even messier. "She's my mama," she whispered. "They beat her real bad." Across the road, behind a wooden fence, a giant man stood still. He was very tall. His shoulders were wide. His hands were big and rough, like they had worked hard for many years. He wore old boots, jeans, and a faded shirt. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He was a farmer. People in the town often talked about him. They said he was strange, quiet, too big, too serious. Some even said he was scary. The farmer had been fixing a fence when he heard the scream. At first, he thought it was an animal. Then he heard the words, "They beat my mom." He looked up. He saw the little girl. She was crying so hard that her whole body was shaking. She looked small against the long, empty road. She looked alone. The farmer walked slowly toward the road. A woman driving by saw him step closer. Her eyes widened. "Oh no," she whispered to herself. "That man looks dangerous." She drove faster. The farmer stopped a few steps away from the girl. He did not rush her. He did not touch her. He just stood there tall and quiet. The girl looked up at him. She froze. He was huge, bigger than any man she had ever seen. For a second, fear crossed her face. She took a step back. The farmer noticed. He slowly kneeled down, making himself smaller. "What happened?" he asked. His voice was deep but calm. The girl tried to speak, but no sound came out. She swallowed hard. "They beat her," she finally said. "My mama. She can't get up." The farmer looked at her hands again. He saw the blood more clearly now. "Is she breathing?" he asked. The girl nodded quickly. "Yes, but she's not waking up." The farmer closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. When he opened them again, something had changed. He stood up. Cars were still passing. People were still pretending not to see. The farmer stepped onto the road and raised his hand. One car honked angrily and swerved around him. He did not move. The girl looked at him with wide eyes. "Mister, please," she said softly. "I don't want her to die." The farmer looked down at her. "Show me where," he said. That was all. No promise. No big speech. Just those 3 words. The girl stood up fast. Hope flashed across her face for the first time. She turned and started running toward the trees. The farmer followed. Behind them, the road went quiet again. But something had already changed. And somewhere far away, the people who heard her mother had no idea that help was finally coming. The little girl ran fast. Her legs were tired, but fear pushed her forward. She did not look back. She just kept running, past the trees, past the tall grass, down a narrow dirt path that most people never used. The giant farmer followed behind her. He did not run. He walked with long, heavy steps, each step firm, each step calm. The path felt endless. The girl's breathing grew louder. Her chest hurt, but she kept going. Finally, she stopped in front of a small house hidden deep in the trees. The house looked tired. Its paint was peeling. One window was broken and covered with cardboard. The front door hung crooked, like it had been kicked too many times. The yard was empty. No toys, no flowers, no signs of life. The farmer stopped beside her. "This is it," the girl said quietly. Her voice was small now. The farmer looked at the house. He felt something heavy in his chest. Not fear, not anger, memory. He stepped closer to the door. Before he could knock, the girl rushed past him and pushed the door open. "Mama," she cried. The smell inside the house was bad. Blood, sweat, fear. The farmer followed her inside. The room was dark. Only one weak light bulb hung from the ceiling, swinging slowly. On the floor lay the girl's mother. She did not move. Her face was swollen. One eye was almost closed. There were dark marks on her arms and neck. Her body looked fragile, like it could break with one touch. "Mama, I brought help," the girl said, dropping to her knees. She shook her mother gently. The woman made a low sound. Her chest moved just a little. "She breathing," the girl said quickly, looking back at the farmer. "See? She's still here." The farmer knelt beside them. He checked the woman's breathing. Slow, weak, but there. "She needs help now," he said. The girl nodded fast. "I screamed," she said. "I screamed real loud." But nobody stopped. Her voice shook, not with fear anymore, but hurt. The farmer did not answer. He stood up and looked around the room. A chair was broken. The table was flipped. There were footprints on the floor, big ones, heavy ones. "This didn't just happen," he said quietly. The girl hugged her mother's arm. "They come back," she whispered. "They always come back." The farmer turned to her. "Who?" he asked. The girl hesitated. "Men," she said. "They say my mama owe them. They say we don't belong here." The farmer's jaw tightened. Outside, a branch snapped. The girl's head lifted fast. "They hear," she said, fear rushing back in her eyes. The farmer walked to the door and looked through a crack. Two shadows moved outside. Voices. Laughing. Loud. Careless. "Thought she'd be dead by now," one voice said. The farmer closed the door slowly. He did not lock it. He turned back to the girl. "Stay with your mama," he said. The girl grabbed his sleeve. "Please don't leave," she begged. "I'm not," he said. "I'm standing." The voices grew closer. Footsteps reached the porch. A fist banged on the door. "Open up," a man shouted. "We ain't done yet." The girl covered her ears. The farmer stepped forward. The door burst open. Two men stood there, smiling. Then they saw him. The smiles faded. "Who the hell are you?" one man asked. The farmer looked down at them. "You don't belong here," the other man said, trying to sound brave. The farmer spoke calmly. "She does," he said. The men laughed, but their laughter was thin now. "You think you tough?" one of them said. "You think you scare us?" The farmer took one step forward. The room felt smaller. The men stepped back without meaning to. In the corner, the little girl watched, holding her mother's hand. For the first time since that morning, she felt a small spark of hope. Outside, far away, a siren echoed. Someone had heard something. Someone had finally listened. And the men at the door suddenly realized. This time, things were different. The two men stood in the doorway. At first, they laughed. Not because they were brave, but because laughing was easier than fear. "Who you supposed to be?" the taller one said. "A hero." The giant farmer did not answer. He stood still, filling the doorway with a shadow. The light behind him made his face hard to read, but his eyes were clear. Calm. Watching. The shorter man looked past him, into the room. He saw the woman on the floor. He saw the little girl holding her hand. "Girl should have stayed quiet," he said with a grin. Now he made things worse. The little girl flinched. The farmer took one step forward. The wooden floor creaked under his weight. "That's close enough," the tall man said, lifting his chin. "You don't know who you're messing with." The farmer spoke, slow and steady. "I know exactly," he said. The men looked at each other. "What you mean?" the shorter one asked. The farmer pointed at the broken chair. "The marks on the wall. The blood on the floor. You came here before," he said. "You heard her." "So what?" the tall man said. "Ain't nobody care." The farmer's eyes flicked to the little girl. "She does," he said. The men laughed again, but this time it sounded wrong. "Man, step aside," the shorter one said. "This ain't your problem." The farmer shook his head. "It became my problem when nobody else stopped." The tall man stepped closer, trying to look big. "You think size scare us?" he said. "You bleed same as everybody else." The farmer looked down at him. "Try me," he said. Silence fell. The wind pushed the door wider. Leaves scraped across the floor. The little girl's heart pounded. She wanted to scream again, but she didn't. She held her breath. The shorter man reached into his jacket. The farmer noticed. "So that's how you do it," the farmer said calmly. The man froze. "You pull something out," the farmer continued, "and this ends bad for you." The tall man swallowed. Outside, a car passed on the road. Life moving on like nothing was happening. The shorter man slowly pulled his hand back. "Ain't worth it," he muttered. The tall man nodded. "We'll come back," he said, pointing at the woman on the floor. "This ain't over." The farmer stepped aside. "Leave," he said. The men hesitated, then turned and walked off the porch. Their steps were fast now, angry, shaky. When they disappeared into the trees, the room felt lighter. The little girl let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "They gone?" she asked. "For now," the farmer said. He walked to the woman again and checked her breathing. Still weak. He pulled out his phone. "No signal," he muttered. The girl looked up at him. "They cut the lines," she said. "They do that." The farmer nodded slowly. "Smart men. Cruel men." He stood up and walked to the window. He looked toward the road, thinking. Then he heard it. A sound he did not expect. Sirens. Far away, but real. The girl's eyes widened. "Police?" she whispered. The farmer frowned. "I didn't call," he said. The sirens grew louder. The farmer turned back to the girl. "Did you?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "No, sir." The sirens stopped. Car door slammed outside. Heavy boots hit the ground. The farmer's body tensed. The door opened again. 2 police officers stepped inside. They looked around fast. One officer wrinkled his nose. "What happened here?" he asked. The farmer spoke first. "She was beaten," he said. "She needs help now." The officer glanced at the woman, then at the girl. Then his eyes moved to the farmer. "And you are?" he asked. "A neighbor," the farmer replied. The officer raised an eyebrow. "A big neighbor," he said. The second officer knelt near the woman. "She alive?" he said. "Barely." He looked at the girl. "Who did this?" he asked. The girl opened her mouth. Then she stopped. Her eyes went to the farmer. He gave her a small nod. She swallowed. "They did," she said, pointing toward the trees. "The men who always come." The officers exchanged a look. "Always?" one asked. The girl nodded. "They say nobody will stop them." The farmer crossed his arms. "That's what they thought," he said. Outside, the sound of another car pulling up echoed through the trees. More help was coming. And somewhere out there, the 2 men were starting to realize they had made a very big mistake. The police car lights flashed outside the small house. Red, blue, red, blue. The trees around the house caught the light and threw long shadows on the walls. The little girl watched those shadows move, holding her mother's hand tight. She was scared again. Not of the men this time, but of what came next. The farmer stood near the wall. Quiet. Still. The officers spoke in low voices near the door. One of them stepped outside to make a call. The other stayed inside, writing something on a small pad. "Ambulance is on the way," the officer said without looking up. The farmer nodded. "How long?" he asked. 10 minutes, the officer replied. "Maybe more." The farmer looked at the woman on the floor. 10 minutes can feel like forever. The little girl looked up at him. "Mister," she said softly. "You gonna leave too?" The farmer turned toward her. "No," he said. "I'm right here." She studied his face like she was trying to understand him. Most grown people did not stay. They always found a reason to walk away. He sat down on the floor, not far from her mother. Slowly, carefully, the officer noticed. "You family?" he asked. The farmer shook his head. "No," he said. The officer looked confused. "Then why?" "Because someone should have stayed a long time ago," the farmer said. The officer stopped writing. The room went quiet. The little girl leaned closer. "What you mean?" she asked. The farmer did not answer right away. He stared at the wall, at a dark stain near the corner. His jaw tightened. "Long time ago," he began, "there was a girl." The little girl listened closely. "She lived in a house like this," he said. "Far from town. Easy to ignore." The officer slowly lowered his pen. "She had a brother," the farmer continued. "Big brother. Strong. But always working. Always tired." The little girl's eyes widened. One night, the farmer said, his voice lower now. Bad men came. Neighbors heard noise. Screaming. He paused. Nobody stopped, he said. The room felt heavy. I came late, he said. Too late. The little girl felt a lump in her throat. What happened to the girl? She asked. The farmer closed his eyes. She didn't make it, he said. Silence filled the room. The officer cleared his throat. I'm sorry, he said quietly. The farmer nodded once. I learned something that night, the farmer said. Evil grows where people look away. The little girl squeezed her mother's hand. I didn't look away, she said softly. The farmer looked at her. No, he said. You didn't. Outside, the sound of tires came closer. An ambulance. The little girl felt hope rise in her chest again. But before the doors opened, another police car pulled up. This one was older, louder. A man stepped out. He wore a nice jacket, clean shoes. He walked like he owned the ground. The officer at the door stiffened. That's the sheriff, he muttered. The sheriff walked inside and looked around slowly. His eyes went from the woman on the floor to the little girl, to the farmer. Well now, he said. What's going on here? The officer explained fast. The sheriff nodded, but his eyes stayed on the farmer. And you? The sheriff asked. Who are you? The farmer stood up. Just a farmer, he said. The sheriff smiled thinly. Funny, he said, because I've heard complaints about you before. The little girl felt fear crawl back in her chest. The sheriff walked closer to the farmer. You been causing trouble? The sheriff asked. The farmer did not move. No, he said. I stopped it. The sheriff's smile faded. Those men you scared off, he said. They got friends. So do I, the farmer replied. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Out here, he asked. I doubt that. Before the farmer could answer, the ambulance doors flew open. Paramedics rushed in. They worked fast. Clean hands. Fast movements. Quiet voices. She's alive, one said, but just barely. They lifted the woman onto a stretcher. The little girl ran beside them. Mama, Mama, she cried. The paramedic looked at her. She's strong, he said. Just like you. As they carried her out, the farmer followed. The sheriff watched him closely. This ain't over, the sheriff said under his breath. The farmer stopped at the door. He turned back once. Neither is this, he said. Outside, the ambulance doors closed. The siren screamed into the trees. The little girl stood beside the farmer, watching the lights fade. She looked up at him. You really gonna stay? She asked. The farmer nodded. Until the end, he said. And somewhere deep inside him, the promise he failed to keep long ago, he was finally keeping now. The hospital was bright. Too bright. White walls. Cold floors. Fast footsteps. Machines making soft sounds. The little girl sat on a hard chair, her legs swinging back and forth. She hugged herself to stay warm. Her mother lay behind a glass door. Still, quiet, connected to wires. The farmer stood near the window, looking outside. His hands were in his pockets, but his body was tense. He had seen places like this before. Places where hope had rules. A nurse walked up with a clipboard. She did not smile. Are you family? She asked the farmer. No, he said. I'm with her. The nurse looked at the little girl. She sighed. We need insurance, the nurse said. Or payment. The farmer frowned. She was beaten, he said. She needs care. The nurse shrugged. We all need care, she replied. That's how it works. The little girl stood up. Please, she said softly. She's my mama. The nurse looked uncomfortable, but only for a moment. I'm sorry, she said, already turning away. The farmer stepped forward. She can't wait, he said. The nurse stopped. Sir, she said, lowering her voice, this hospital has rules. The farmer nodded slowly. So does right and wrong, he said. The nurse walked away. Minutes passed. Then more. Doctors walked by without stopping. People whispered as they passed the little girl. Some stared. Some shook their heads. She looked dirty, one woman whispered. Probably trouble, another said. The little girl heard every word. She sat back down and looked at her shoes. One foot was still bare. The farmer noticed. He took off his jacket and gently placed it around her shoulders. Cold, he asked. She nodded. Hungry too, she admitted. He gave her a small smile. Hold on, he said. Just a little longer. Across the hall, two men stood talking to a doctor. The little girl recognized them. Her body stiffened. "That's them," she whispered. The farmer turned. The men were clean clothes now. No anger, no fear, just smiles. One of them laughed as he spoke to the doctor. "They lying," the girl said. "They lying real bad." The farmer watched closely. The doctor nodded at the men. Then the doctor looked toward the farmer and the girl. His face changed. "I need to speak with you," the doctor said, walking over. The farmer stood. "Yes," he said. The doctor folded his hands. "There are questions," he said carefully. "About what happened?" The farmer stayed calm. "She was attacked," he said. "Her child saw it." The doctor glanced at the men down the hall. "They claim she fell," the doctor said. "And you scared them." The little girl stood up. "That's a lie," she shouted. "They hurt her." People turned to look. The nurse rushed over. "Quiet," she hissed. "You can't yell like that here." The little girl's eyes filled with tears. "They always tell me be quiet," she cried. "Always." The farmer stepped in front of her. "She's speaking the truth," he said. "And you know it." The doctor looked away. "I don't want trouble," he said. "This town is small." The farmer leaned closer. "So, is your courage," he said quietly. The doctor's face flushed. "I'll do what I can," he muttered, then walked away. The men at the end of the hall smiled again. One of them mouthed words at the girl. Too late. The farmer saw it. He pulled out his phone. Still no signal. But then, one bar appeared. He turned his back to the room and made a call. "Yes," he said into the phone. "It's happening again." He listened. Then he nodded. "Tonight," he said. "Bring everything." He hung up. The little girl looked up at him. "Who you call?" she asked. "Someone who doesn't look away," he said. Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, the lights flickered. A nurse rushed down the hall. "The sheriff is coming," she whispered to another nurse. "He's mad." The little girl's stomach dropped. The farmer placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said. "No matter what happens, you do the right thing." She looked into his eyes. "Promise?" she asked. "I promise," he said. At the end of the hall, the elevator doors opened. The sheriff stepped out. And this time, the whole town was about to choose a side. The hospital hallway went silent when the sheriff stepped out of the elevator. His boots hit the floor slow and loud. Top, top, top. People moved out of his way. Nurses stopped talking. Even the two men at the end of the hall stood a little straighter. The little girl felt her heart drop. She grabbed the farmer's hand without thinking. He did not pull away. The sheriff stopped in front of them. "Well," he said, forcing a smile. "This place is busy today." Nobody laughed. The sheriff looked at the girl first. "Child," he said, bending a little, "you've been making a lot of noise." The girl did not answer. The farmer stepped forward. "She's telling the truth," he said. "That's not noise." The sheriff straightened up. "And who are you to say that?" he asked. The farmer met his eyes. "I'm someone who remembers," he said. The sheriff frowned. Before he could speak again, a nurse rushed down the hall. "Sheriff," she said, nervous, "you need to see this." She held up a phone. On the screen was a video. The sheriff took it. His face changed. The video showed the small house, the porch, the door. It showed the men going inside. It showed shadows, sounds, screaming. The little girl screamed. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Where did this come from?" he asked. The nurse swallowed. "Someone posted it online," she said. "It's spreading fast." Across the hall, people pulled out their phones. Whispers grew louder. "That's her house. That's the girl. They lied." The two men backed away slowly. "This ain't real," one of them said. "It's fake." The farmer spoke. "It's real," he said. "A neighbor had a camera. You forgot about that." The sheriff turned toward the men. "You told me she fell," he said. The men said nothing. The sheriff looked around the hall. At the doctors, the nurses, the people watching. "Ambulance report?" he asked. A paramedic stepped forward. "Blunt force trauma," he said. "Not a fall." Silence. The sheriff exhaled hard. "Cuff them," he said. The men panicked. "You can't do this," one shouted. "You know who we—" The sheriff cut him off. "I know what you are," he said. The officers moved fast. Metal cuffs clicked shut. The little girl covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. "They're not going to hurt her no more?" she asked softly. The farmer knelt beside her. "No," he said. "Not ever again." Down the hall, the doctor ran toward them. She's waking up, he said. The mother. She's asking for her child. The girl gasped. Mama, she whispered. The doctor nodded. She's weak, he said. But she's alive. The girl ran. The farmer followed, slower. Inside the room, the woman's eyes were half open. Bruised. Tired. But alive. Her lips moved. Baby, she whispered. The little girl grabbed her hand. I'm here, Mama, she cried. I didn't leave. The woman tried to smile. You so brave, she said. The farmer stood quietly at the door. The woman looked at him. You saved us, she asked. He shook his head. No, he said. She did. Outside the room, reporters began to arrive. Cameras. Questions. Lights. The sheriff stood stiff as microphones were pushed toward him. Sheriff, someone shouted. Why were these men protected? He said nothing. The video played again and again on phones across the town. People could not look away anymore. That night, protests formed outside the station. Not loud, just steady. Candles in hands. Signs with simple words. Listen to our children. Justice is not optional. The farmer stood at the edge of the crowd. The little girl sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket. You think people gonna change? She asked. The farmer looked at the lights. The faces. The truth standing in the open. Some will, he said. Some won't. She nodded. That okay, she said. I just wanted my mama safe. The farmer smiled gently. That's how change starts, he said. With one voice they tried to silence. And now that voice had been heard. There was no going back. The courtroom was full. People stood against the walls. Others sat on the floor. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding the same breath. Cameras waited outside, but inside there was no noise. Only truth. The little black girl sat on the front bench, her feet not touching the ground. She wore a clean dress now. Her hair was neat, but her eyes were the same, strong, sharp, awake. Her mother sat beside her, still healing, still weak, but alive. She held her daughter's hand like she might disappear if she let go. Across the room, the two men sat with stiff faces. No smiles now, no jokes. Their hands were folded tight, their eyes low. The farmer sat in the back, quiet, still, watching. The judge entered. Bring in the witness, he said. The little girl's heart jumped. Her mother leaned close. You don't have to, she whispered. You already did enough. The girl shook her head. I want to talk, she said. They tried to make me quiet. She stood. The room felt smaller as she walked to the front. She looked at the judge, then at the men, then at the people watching. Her voice was soft, but it did not shake. They came to our house, she said. They heard my mama. They said nobody would help us. She paused, but someone did. Her eyes moved to the back of the room. The farmer did not move. They said my mama don't matter, the girl continued. They said I should be quiet. She lifted her chin. I'm not quiet. A murmur moved through the room. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, he said. The men's lawyer stood up, but the judge raised his hand. No, he said. We've heard enough. The gavel came down. Guilty. The sound echoed through the room. The little girl felt her mother's hand squeeze hers. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear this time, but relief. Outside, the sun was bright. People waited on the courthouse steps. Some cried. Some clapped. Some just stood still, like they were seeing the town for the first time. The farmer stepped outside last. A reporter rushed toward him. Why did you help? She asked. You didn't have to. He thought for a moment. Because silence almost killed my sister, he said. I won't let it kill another child. He walked away. Weeks passed. The little girl and her mother moved into a small new home. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. Flowers grew by the window. Laughter returned slowly. The town changed too. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But people started stopping when someone cried. Started listening. Started caring. One afternoon, the little girl stood at the edge of the same road where she once screamed for help. Cars passed. Then one slowed. The driver waved. She smiled. Across the field, the farmer fixed a fence. She ran to him. Mister, she called. He turned. She hugged him tight. I'm not scared no more, she said. He rested his hand gently on her head. That's good, he said. She looked up. You think my voice really mattered? He smiled. A small voice can shake a whole town, he said. If someone finally listens. The girl nodded. She looked down the road again, the place where nobody stopped. Now it looked different, not because the road changed, but because people did, and the scream that once froze the road became the voice that woke everyone up.